After watching videos like mine, he went out and bought a hydrostat tractor, and now the thing doesn't want to climb a hill. I can tell you right now, if it's possible to reverse these wheels, I'm going to do it. I just found a major problem in this owner's manual, and if you followed these instructions, you'd have a major problem as well. Hey, it's Brock here with Rock Hill Farm. Today we're going to talk a little bit about tractors. We're going to do some maintenance, and I want to share with you guys some information that maybe you don't know, or maybe you do. You can tell me in the comment section if all this is stuff you've heard before. The video is prompted by a guy who sent me an email, and he said, I've been running tractors all my life, and I'm having this problem with my new tractor. And I thought, uh-oh, I'm not going to be able to help this guy. And then I read it, and I said, okay, actually, I do know that answer. And if some of you don't, I think that's good information to share. But we're going to get into that later on. The other things we're going to do in this video is an oil change on the tractor. We're going to talk about fuel additives, and we're going to read the owner's manual because I am very clearly failing at my responsibilities as a tractor owner. I've got a couple hundred hours on this tractor, and this is still sealed. This is the owner's manual for this tractor. It's still sealed in the bag. If you're going to buy a machine that costs this much money and you don't bother to read the owner's manual, it's probably a bad deal. This is a very expensive piece of equipment that can be dangerous, and we need to know how to take care of it. Reading the manual does a couple things for you. I made a video just like this on the John Deere where I had it for a long time, and then I sat down and read the owner's manual on camera, and I found a bunch of things in there that would have been good to know. So we're going to repeat that here. We're also going to find out how good TYM is at making an owner's manual. It may be that this manual sucks and doesn't have any information in there, so we'll find out. The other thing I want to do at the end of the video, I want to talk about the online issues that TYM is having in terms of their perception of parts availability, warranty issues, and things like that. So I think the first thing I want to do is get the oil draining, because while I'm talking, I'm going to be doing this oil change. Now, this is not going to be a full service video on this tractor because I've already made that video. And in that video, we did all the filters, we did the hydraulic fluid, all of that stuff. The tractor is not due for a full service. It's not even due for an oil change based on the hours. But we're going to see in the manual whether or not there's a time recommendation on the oil change. It's been only maybe 150 hours on the tractor since the last oil change, but it's been 15 months. Well, I think once a year you ought to just change the oil anyway. And I've decided when you're talking about a very expensive piece of equipment and a once a year oil change, maybe just put a premium oil in it. Now, Royal Purple is one of my new channel sponsors. They sent the oil to me. I think to protect your engine, I'm gonna search out premium oil when I do the oil changes on any of my equipment going forward. Couple more quick conversations before I drain that oil. I want to talk about the filters and fuel additives. So I called my dealer. He's actually a sponsor of the channel too. The Tractor Yard. Been an awesome dealer for me, and I actually texted him. I said, should I come to the dealership and get the TYM filter, or should I just go to O'Reilly's? And I don't know if he was saying that he thinks a Wick filter is better, or if it's just not worth it to drive. He's an hour and 40 minutes from me, I think. He said, man, just go to O'Reilly's. We cross-referenced the filter number, and so that's what I'm going to be using. But in my last maintenance video, when I was changing all the fluids on the mini skid, we had that conversation too about OEM filters and stuff like that. The next thing is fuel additives. How many of you guys use fuel additives in your vehicles and in your equipment? Now, I always get a diesel anti-gel in the winter because I don't want my fuel to freeze. But when you look at these products, like this is the Royal Purple Max Restore. You read the bottle, it says fuel system treatment for high mileage. Restores fuel economy, extends engine life, lowers emissions, maximum cleaning power. When I was young, I was driving old vehicles all the time, and I was always, worried about them breaking down, and I was always buying these fuel treatments. But back then, those vehicles I was driving, they didn't have anything that like tracked fuel economy long term. And you could do it mathematically by dividing out your miles, but you didn't always drive the same way. So I never knew if it was working. I was just buying the products. But I've actually heard some compelling cases that periodically using a product like this can improve your fuel efficiency. Now, I wouldn't have a way to test that on a tractor, but I've got a case of this, and I'm going to do an extended test to see if it improves my fuel efficiency putting this product in my diesel truck. I did ask Royal Purple if they would recommend this for use in a tractor, and they said yes. So do you guys periodically use any kind of a fuel treatment like this? One thing I was told is that your fuels have different detergents and additives in them, and that can vary by the company that actually processed that fuel. And that changing your fuel every so often or using a product like this, some of the detergents will build up, and these actually are effective. So I'm really interested to find out. But as far as the dealership recommending I go to O'Reilly's and buy this, TYM might not love that, but he makes money selling filters. And he's like, man, don't drive up here for that. Just go to O'Reilly's. All right, so got my roller thing out, trying to get my hat on backwards so I can fit up under here. Not a whole lot of room. I got no way to prove this, but I'm telling you right now, I guess the socket right on the first try being an 11/16 on this drain plug. Now I've got the backhoe subframe on here, which is a little bit problematic. It kind of blocks access to the oil drain plug. When you remove this plug right here, oil runs down onto it and it kind of drips off in multiple places. So having that subframe on there, it's not ideal. There ought to be a hole drilled up right under that drain plug so that you don't make a mess. We'll see how it goes. The camera is about where I ought to be, so you guys are making this hard on me because making me record all this. See if I can do it with my arm extended. See, old Jake tightened this up last time. It'll be his fault. I can't get it. Oh gosh. Well, I either got it or I messed it up. We'll see. Something moved. Oh yeah. She's a spinning. Oh. First little bit missed the mark. This thing's got 2 drain plugs. It looks like the bottom of the pan's not flat, so I might have to use both of them to get all the oil out. So I'm gonna let this drain a little bit, then go to the other side and take the other one loose, but I don't think you need that on camera. A couple pieces of information for the record. You definitely need to pull both drain plugs. So I let the oil drain out of this side for 5 minutes, and then I went around to see if there was still oil that would drain out of the other side. There definitively is. You have to pull both plugs. Second thing, if you happen to have a TYM 574, the Wix filters of 51324, that's a cross-reference. It will get you the same filter. This is where you get out your filter wrench, but I don't normally use one. I'm used to normally doing this hand tight with them, but this one's a little bit stiff. Make sure to check the video description and the end card at the end of this video. I'll put a link on the screen where you can see the full maintenance video that goes into detail about everything you need to do on this tractor. I don't want to repeat all that, so we're going to zip through the maintenance portion. We will make sure we got the O-ring off with it. Do that every time. I personally know someone who blew an engine because they didn't know. But you got to make sure that that filter comes off with the O-ring on it, so you're not leaving an O-ring on your engine. Now we're putting some oil on the new filter so that this ring rolls on smooth and doesn't stick. All right. Now before doing the oil change, I did open the manual and read what it had to say about the oil change. And there's some interesting things on here I want to point out about what it said on the oil change. But I'm going to go through this thing chronologically, and I've got time to do that because I did not get this engine good and hot, which means the oil is not going to drain out as well. You want to get your engine hot, but I didn't do it, and it's later in the evening, and obviously I'm not going to run it inside the shop, so we just went ahead and did it this way. But I'm going to go through this manual and see how good of a manual it is and how much stuff there is in this manual that I didn't know. All right, so I'm through just a few pages here, and this is a table of contents and like some safety warnings and all the standard stuff you're going to see in a manual. That stuff should be in here. Pictures of the tractor with locations of different things. Tells you where to get your model number off of the plate on the tractor. First thing that's interesting, though, here on page 7, service. Service is available from any TYM dealer in the country. Now, that does not say service is available from the dealer where you bought your tractor. It says any dealer in the country. That's a big deal. And it's a specifically big deal to someone who may have bought their tractor and moved, or for one reason or another, bought their tractor from a non-local dealership, or they bought it from a dealership that went out of business and now their only dealer is further away. Books published by TYM. This isn't my thoughts. It's not rumor around the internet. This is a TYM official document. It says, service is available from any TYM dealer in the country. So just file that away in your mind for our later conversation. Parts. To obtain spare parts, please contact your nearest dealer and give them the information listed below. Yep. So now I'm up to page 11, and I would say this is a well-written owner's manual to this point. It's giving explanations of things that I didn't know would be explained in the manual. Like right here, front axle and wheel. The four-wheel drive front axle is a center pivot reverse Elliott type. I don't know what a reverse Elliott type of center pivot front axle is, but they're describing the engineering of the tractor a little bit. And that goes through all the different things. We've got, in the final cases, the transmitted revolution is reduced by the level gears to drive the front wheels. The four-wheel drive mechanism with level gears provides wider steering and greater durability. So this just goes on and on. You got a section on the engine. It describes the type of engine that's in it. Then you got the transmission. It describes the transmission, the brakes, just explaining the basics of what you've bought. If this is your first tractor or whatever the case may be, they're trying to be thorough is what I'm saying. But now we're to something interesting to me again. Owner assistance. This is critical for the conversation we're going to have later. We at TYM and your TYM dealer distributor want you to be completely satisfied with your investment. Well, darn tootin'. I think we're on the same page there. I feel like probably anyone who buys a tractor wants to be completely satisfied with their investment. So it's good that TYM also wants that. Normally, any problems with your equipment will be handled by your dealer, distributor, and service department. And then there's a whole thing about a process you go through when you have a problem. You go to the dealership service department and tell them the problem, give them an opportunity to deal with it. If that problem's not being dealt with, then you go to the owner or the manager. Let me see what it says exactly. Contact the owner or the general manager of the dealership and explain the problem and request assistance. That's step 2. You're still at your dealership. The dealership should be solving any problem you have. But if they don't, they talk about what to do next. If you cannot obtain satisfaction by doing this, contact the TYM corporate office and provide us with all of this information about yourself, serial number of the machine, the dealer, and the nature of the problem. So what they're telling you here is if your dealership sucks, go to corporate. Go up the ladder. Service department, dealership owner or general manager, then to corporate. Because the reality is, with independent dealers, you're going to have good dealers and potentially you might have bad dealers. And if you've got a bad dealership, it's corporate's job to step in and solve the problem after you've gone up the chain of command. Once again, we've got a couple more pages of accurate, in my mind, accurate and valuable safety information, like about your ROPS, and like don't hook a chain ever to your ROPS to pull, flip the tractor over backward if you did that, all kinds of stuff about that. Do not weld, drill, or straighten the ROPS. Always wear your seatbelt if your machine is equipped with a ROPS. Lots of basic stuff. Got instructions for seat adjustment. And then we have a whole nother section on safety. You know, operating around children. Don't let children ride on tractor or implement. Always read safety instructions. Precaution to avoid tipping. This is a very critical part of the manual that I've covered in great detail in past videos. Do not drive where the tractor could slip or tip. Stay alert for holes and rocks in the terrain and other hidden hazards. Slow down before making a sharp turn. Driving forward out of a ditch or mired condition would cause tractor to tip over backward. Back out of these situations if possible. All right, then we've got something about parking brakes. Keep riders off of tractors. Do not allow extra people to ride on the tractor. Safe handling of fuel. Stay clear of rotating shaft. Always use safety lights. There's some basic safety information. I think this section might be insufficient on be careful to avoid tipping. There are a lot of other things to factor in, particularly ballast, driving with your load up in the air, turning with a lot of weight on it, but that's possible that could be covered in a later section. So we're not going to make a big deal about it right now. Just say that on the precaution to avoid tipping, there could be a lot more put in there. Do not attempt to service the tractor while it's in motion. I like that one. I wouldn't be doing an oil change while driving. And I'm making jokes here because I'm a joke-making kind of guy. But this is this kind of legalized like statements that need to be in an operator's manual. Here's one that talks about avoiding the dangers of high-pressure fluids. That's one that I didn't know when I bought a tractor. Escaping fluid under high pressure can penetrate the skin, causing serious injury. I've been told there have been people who actually died from it. That oil can penetrate your skin, and it seems like, well, that wouldn't be that big a deal. But you can get like severe infections, and I don't know, but it causes some serious health problems. So be careful about using bare skin to deal with high-pressure hydraulic fluid. I'm not going to go through the whole manual like this. I'm going to read all this, and I'll be back in a minute if something really grabs my attention. I'm pretty deep in the manual. I've skipped a good 20 pages. Not skipped, I read them, but I didn't narrate on the camera for the last 15 or 20 pages. It's a lot of repeating common sense stuff, like don't walk under the loader while it's up in the air, all that, those disclaimers and stuff. Here's the first thing that jumped out to me in a while. Coolant temperature warning lamp. This indicates the temperature of the coolant while the key switch is in the on position. Warning lamp on the coolant is overheated. In this case, stop driving and take any necessary action according to the troubleshooting instructions. So we go to the troubleshooting instructions, which obviously we'll look at this whole section in a minute. The engine is overheated. Causes insufficient coolant. Solution, add coolant. Loose or damaged fan belt, adjust fan belt tension or replace. Clogged radiator, clean radiator. Insufficient engine oil, inspect and replenish. I wish there was a little bit more complete description here. I've done a separate video talking about this, but some people may not know. What do you do if your engine's overheating? It seems like, if you don't know, thing is, the engine gets hot because it's running. Shut it off and it'll cool off. It's actually not the best solution. The best solution is keep it running, ideally even keep driving it, but lower your RPMs, shut the PTO off, and assuming those other things are true, that you have enough coolant in there and your radiator's not clogged, you can cool the tractor off faster by continuing to have the coolant circulate. So what I'll do is lower my RPMs, drive it slower up to the shop, get my air compressor hose and blow off the radiator and never shut the tractor off, and that will cool the engine off in 5 minutes instead of 25 minutes. So that'd be good information. Now, your manual's not meant to teach you everything you ever need to know about your tractor, but that'd be good information. Here's a good one. Now, when I got my first tractor, it was a little John Deere. I'd never owned a tractor. I had used an old tractor when I was a kid, an old gear drive, like 1950s tractor that my dad used to have. I didn't know anything about tractors, and I was on a Facebook group, and someone asked the question, how often do you have your tractor in four-wheel drive? And there were multiple people that answered that they always leave their tractor in four-wheel drive. Let's read what this has to say about it. Four-wheel drive can be used under the following conditions: when cultivating in a field, when traction is required on a slope, in a wet field, or for towing a trailer, when working in wet or sandy conditions, when cultivating on firm soil with a rotavator to prevent the tractor from being pushed forward, when driving into or out of a field or going over a field bank. Important, before operating four-wheel drive lever, make sure to stop the tractor. If it's hard to engage the four-wheel drive lever, do not apply excessive force to it. Instead, drive the tractor forward or backwards slightly and try again. Avoid using four-wheel drive on public roads to reduce wear on tires. So my take on this is you should only be in four-wheel drive if you need four-wheel drive in that moment. Most of the time you don't. It puts unnecessary strain and wear on the system to run in four-wheel drive when you don't need it. And I got bad advice when I got my first tractor. And I read that and I'm like, half the people say leave it in four-wheel drive all the time. I'll just do that. It's simpler. Well, that's hard on your differential, your front axle, uneven tire wear, especially if you're on hard surfaces. Now, this is the type of thing that I got the manual out to find. During cold weather with ambient temperatures above 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 Celsius, operate the air conditioner at least once per month for a period of 10 to 15 minutes. This will lubricate the seals to prevent them from becoming brittle and help prevent the loss of refrigerant in the system. Run your air conditioner once a month, whether you need it or not, is apparently good for it. I never would have thought of that. But if you read your manual, you would. Here's another one. Never turn on the heating system when working in dusty environments. I guess you could start a fire. I don't know. But I wouldn't have thought of that either. Guess it's not usually dusty around here in the winter. It's usually soggy and muddy in the winter. I'm just going to skip right over the section on the cup holder. I think I've mastered it already. All right. How to start an engine. You got the glow plugs on it. I'm interested what it says about this. Now, in the John Deere owner's manual, it said to start your engine at like 2/3 of the way up the throttle. I would always start it at idle. If it would start at idle, they said even in cold weather, start it at 2/3 throttle. Once it's started for a second, then turn the throttle down. This does not mention the RPMs to have, or the throttle position when starting. It does say if engine cannot be started within 10 seconds, wait 30 seconds and try again. Oh, especially in cold weather, always allow the tractor to idle up for a while to warm up and build up sufficient oil pressure to ensure normal operating temperature for longer engine life. So if it's cold, don't just jump in it and start working. And we're used to modern vehicles, but 40 years ago, with the carburetor in your engine, you would not have went out, started your vehicle and drove off. You would start it and let it warm up. That's how you're supposed to treat this tractor. It actually says, after starting engine, idle engine for 5 to 10 minutes so that oil is delivered to each part of the engine. Idling in cold weather. Hydraulic oil in this vehicle is also used as transmission fluid. If the temperature drops in winter so oil gets cold, its viscosity rises and the hydraulic pump cannot suck oil in, causing malfunction. Make sure to idle engine in winter according to the following instructions. So it's got temperatures here. So if it's between 32 and 14 degrees, 14 to 32 degrees Fahrenheit, idle for 10 to 20 minutes. Got a whole chart on that. Here's another really interesting one that I've done a video on. To avoid damage of transmission and implement, do not engage PTO with the engine running at high speed. And we talked about this before with a tractor like this that has an auto PTO, so that when you raise your PTO, it shuts or you raise your 3-point, it shuts the PTO off. So I'm not a big fan of that feature because you're going to be constantly starting and stopping your PTO, and the startup and the shutdown are hard on the PTO, especially a startup with a large implement puts a lot of strain on the system. I wouldn't be starting and stopping my PTO all the time unless it eases in. Like if you can hear it when you raise your PTO, if it reduces RPMs to ease off, or you can hear it kind of do a soft start on the PTO, but I don't think they do that. So that conversation in that video is, I'm not a fan of those auto PTOs. I don't want my PTO starting and stopping over and over if I can avoid it. Follow the next steps to use the PTO. Decrease engine speed near idle. Change PTO mode switch and or PTO shift lever to desired position. Turn on the PTO switch. Increase engine speed to desired speed. So the theory with the auto PTO is that raising your implement to a steep angle could be hard on your PTO shaft, and you want it to stop spinning when you lift your implement. But I think that only makes sense if you've got an easy start, and I don't think they have it. All right, now this is really unexpected. I would never have guessed this would be in a manual. And there are things I'm still hoping to find in here that I haven't seen. But right here we have a sequential returning plow pattern. See that chart there with like direction you're supposed to go when plowing? This pattern can be useful in well-planned field in good condition. There's a lot of things I would expect to be in a manual, but sequential plowing pattern is not something I would expect. I mean, do we have the ideal times to plant corn in zone 3? Not that there'd be anything wrong with that. Here's an alternating returning plow pattern, land leveling pattern. This is intricate. Like, it might be useful. But you're going to start here, not in the middle, not at the outside. You're going to go from 1 and then skip a row to 2 and skip a row to 3 so that you're not turning too sharp. Man, that's some intricate and detailed information. Surprising. Pretty cool. Front loader operation. Keep the balance between the front and rear by installing weight to the back of the tractor or attaching a weight or implement using the 3-point link. Important, if it is hard to steer the tractor for plowing as the front wheels are lifted, install additional weights to the front if no loader is installed. When transporting things with a loader, lower the loader and keep the driving speed slow. Keep the loader 30 to 50 centimeters off the ground and driving speeds below 5 kilometers an hour. When going into a slope or unpaved area, lower the speed and drive with care. Do not lift anything only with one side of the tractor. If so, the tractor may fall on its side. Make sure to distribute the load evenly. Keep the clearance between the rear wheels as large as possible for safety of the tractor. Okay, so you have all that information that I was really hoping to see. Now, I might like a little more on how you can take weight off of your front axle by properly ballasting in the back, but that was a better explanation than I was anticipating. Okay, here we have operation tips on like cleaning your air filter every 50 hours or every day in dusty conditions. All right, now here we have our maintenance schedule. Coolant level, check before every day's work. Coolant, it's like they want you to replace the coolant every 2 years. So I'm coming up on that. Engine oil and filter. You're supposed to do that at 50 hours, which I did. And then after that, every 250 hours. But it also indicates oil change once a year if you don't hit your hours. So actually, I was a little bit past due for this oil change. So all of your things, you've got a maintenance schedule on here, just like you would want. Transmission oil, first 50 hours, then again at 500. That's why we're not doing it. On the hydraulic, on the transmission oil, it does not list a yearly interval outside of the hourly interval. which works out because I just happen to be doing it that way. I should have found out what TYM told me to do to the tractor, especially considering it's under warranty, instead of going with my general idea of what it should be. Got your front axle, greasing everything. All of your stuff here is all, it all has a maintenance schedule, and I don't see anything out of place with that from my understanding. All right, now we have engine coolant inspection and change, checking and changing the engine oil. Now, this is the part of the manual I was laughing about at the beginning. This is wrong. It's not wrong, it's incomplete for sure. Step 1, unscrew the drain plug on the lower section of the engine to drain contaminated engine oil. Since hot oil flows out of the engine first, be careful not to get burned. After draining oil, tighten the engine oil drain plug. Two problems there, two major problems. First, it does not tell you that there are two drain plugs and that draining one side does not drain the other side. Step 3, add the specified amount of the specified engine oil through the filler hole. So the entire oil change instructions say drain the oil, put the plug back, refill the oil. Are we not changing the oil filter when we do an oil change? Well, of course we are. But if you didn't know, if you had no experience at all, and when you're making an instruction manual, you act as if no one has any experience at all. You're trying to make it idiot-proof. And so I said, why did it not tell us to change the engine oil filter? Replacing engine oil filter is 1, 2, 3, 4 pages later. It tells you how to change the oil filter, but in the section about changing the oil filter, it does not tell you to drain the oil or to refill the oil. It does tell you to check it afterwards, but this should be up here. Checking and changing transmission fluid. I don't see any issues there. Checking and changing front axle fluid. Now, my dealership, the tractor yard, did this initial service video with me, and we did all of these steps. He kind of made a big deal about the fact that you want to raise this axle up in the air and spin the fluid, because fluid can get trapped in different sections of the axle. And if you don't rotate it, you can think you have all the fluid out, but not. And especially afterwards, when you fill, if you don't rotate that axle and then check it on both sides, you can get yourself in a mistake of not having as much fluid in there as you think you do. So I would describe this as an insufficient description of how to change the front axle oil. I don't see any problem with the section on the transmission fluid. Then we've got the section on the engine oil filter. Now we're going through the electrical wiring, how to replace fuses, how to adjust the brake pedal. I have never done that. I don't know anything about it, so I'm going to have to take their word for it on how to adjust the brake pedal. Checking and adjusting the fan belt, checking fuel hoses, tire pressure inflation, adjusting wheel tread. Adjusting wheel tread. It can be adjusted by switching the rims and disc of left and right tires. All right, so I'm going to be honest. Either the manual's dumb or I'm dumb, and it's probably a coin flip. It could go either way. But this says adjusting wheel tread. First, I'm not 100% sure that I know what that means. I think I know what it means. Let's see if the internet knows. Adjusting wheel tread on a tractor. Adjusting a tractor's wheel tread involves either repositioning the wheel rims, reversing the wheel disc, or swapping the entire assembly to the other side of the tractor. Always consult your tractor's manual for specific instructions and torque specifications. Now, it could be possible that different years and different models of this tractor have different wheels. Maybe the gear drive tractors are different. This tractor manual covers the 494 and the 574 in an NH and an SH. The wheels in this picture look different than mine. There could be different answers. But what I know is that I've been pretty involved with this model of tractor for a few years now, and I've never one time heard someone talk about switching their wheels, flipping their wheels around, or swapping sides with them, or like changing the way that center disc is bolted or anything, which it's not bolted, it's a solid wheel. I do not believe you can change the stance of this tractor by doing something with these wheels. But you know what? Let's take a look at it. The front wheels looks like definitely no. The back wheels looks like maybe. So that wheel is a solid piece. And if you flipped it around, you might be able to change it a little bit, but I've never heard of anyone doing it on this tractor model. The depth difference is minimal, and if you reverse this wheel, you would make your tractor narrower, and I can't imagine that you'd want to do that on a machine with this much lift capacity. Now this wheel looks like it's made where it can be flipped. Take the wheel off, lay it down, and then unbolt this center section and flip it around. I think, let me see. I think maybe you could make this have a wider stance on the back. And if that's the case, I might do it. I'm going to have to verify that, and I want some of you guys to tell me, but is that what it looks like to you? The gap between here and here is not exactly the same. I'm going to find out from my dealership, and if these wheels are reversible, there'll be a follow-up video, and we're going to reverse the wheels and see how much difference it makes. 100%. That's not even a question. If it can be done, we're going to do it. And we're going to get to the very bottom of the pros and the cons, why you would and why you wouldn't. Now we've got specifications. We've got all your information about the engine, the number of cylinders, displacement, powertrain, transmission type, number of speeds, on and on. Lots of information here that you might want. And you got your capacities on your fuel, coolant, engine oil, transmission, front axle, and your tire sizes. Major consumables, air cleaner, engine fan, belt, all that information. Here's your warranty, rights, and obligations. All right, so I would say that's a comprehensive owner's manual, pretty well written. Not a lot of things I would take issue with. It's got all the information you need in it. Last thing before I finish off my oil change, or a couple things actually. I promised you guys a useful piece of information. And I mentioned that there was an email that prompted this, and I want to tell you the story. So he said he's always had tractors his whole life. He's had a bunch of different tractors. They were all gear drive tractors. After watching videos like mine, he went out and bought a hydrostat tractor, and now the thing doesn't want to climb a hill. And it feels like maybe I helped him with a simple answer, and I've proven this to myself beyond the concept that it actually is true. So where I run into this is whenever I transport the tractor, there's a lot of hills around here, and if I'm on the road, I'm driving the tractor on the road to a neighbor's house or something like that, go up a steep hill and you're in high gear because you're on the road, the tractor starts running out of power. You barely have enough power to get up the hill. And you think, I've got the throttle all the way up, the pedals all the way down, and it won't make it up the hill. So I guess I got to go into low gear. And maybe even pulling a load, it struggles in a medium or a low range. If you're used to a gear drive tractor, you may not have thought about the way a hydrostat operates. And the simplest explanation I can give is that you only have 3 ranges, but really it's like you have an infinite number of gears. So let's say you're in low range and you just barely push the pedal. This is your hydrostat accelerator pedal. You just barely push it down. You're in 1-1, first gear. Push it a little more. You're still in first range, low range, but now you're in 1-2, second gear. And you keep pushing down. If you mash that pedal to the floor, now you're in 4th gear. Whatever it's infinite range, but you're in a higher gear by pushing down on that. So now you're driving down the road in high range. And you got to go up this hill. Putting the pedal all the way down is essentially like shifting into the highest gear. So if you ease into that pedal at high throttle in high range, you'll have the torque you need to make it up that hill. So the secret when you're just like, I can't believe my tractor won't make it up this hill pulling this load or whatever it is don't push so hard on the pedal. And that keeps you from the need to stop the tractor on a hill and try to downshift and start again. Before you start up the hill, just keep that in mind. Throttle all the way up. Don't use auto throttle. Throttle all the way up. ease into the pedal and it'll do what you want it to do. Now, the next thing is I've been all over the country the last month at a bunch of trade shows and different things, and viewers have been meeting up with me at these shows to chat. And everybody knows I'm a TYM tractor guy. I've got a TYM tractor. My dealership, I'm not sponsored by TYM. TYM's never paid me. I've never gotten anything from TYM. I'm sponsored by a dealership that carries 3 tractor brands, and I have the ability to pick any tractor off of his lot to use on my property. I picked this one. I'm not sponsored by TYM, but I do have some interest in my dealership, which is the tractor yard. Essentially, what I'm doing with that story is giving a disclaimer of any potential bias that I may or may not have. But people think of me as a TYM guy, so they come up and they're like, can you believe how much TYMs went downhill? I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I think they're doing a lot of good things. They're consolidating model numbers. They've modernized some of the old Branson tractors without giving up any of the things people loved about them, but making improvements at the same time. They've got the 3035 and the 3025 replacing the 2515 and the 3515. The 5835, which was an amazing tractor, has been replaced by the 4058. I think all of those are positive things that the company's doing. I know of 2 things that can lead people to say, you know, what's going on with TYM or their reputation's going downhill. Number 1, parts availability. I've been in the TYM ecosystem, been on the Facebook groups, talking to owners, have my tractor for a long time. I've been in the groups for several years now, and I've never known TYM to have a problem getting parts. They've been pretty reliable and pretty fast at getting parts. Now, every single brand, I've addressed this in another video. I've got 190,000 subscribers and over 95 million channel views. That results in a lot of comments. And then you couple that with Facebook, where I've had even more. I've got hundreds of millions of people have watched my videos. I've gotten a lot of comments, and those comments tell me that every single brand has anecdotal stories about someone who had a bad experience. They needed a part and couldn't get it. For that person, that is an awful experience. But what you have to do when you decide what you want to think of a company's reputation is there a higher percentage of instances of this problem than there is with other brands? There's not a single brand that has not infuriated an individual customer by providing poor support. It happens to every brand. The question is, does it happen more with TYM than it does with whatever other brand you're talking about? My experience is no. Now, there was a period of about a month, maybe 6 weeks, where it was difficult to get parts from TYM. TYM had multiple parts facilities around the country where they stored parts and shipped parts from. They changed that system. They went from having these locations for parts to consolidating, and now all the parts are here. And the process of moving everything and redoing inventory in their system resulted in they didn't ship much for like a month. And people freaked out. And that's justified. Like, you should be concerned if you hear that people are having trouble getting parts for your tractor. And if your tractor was broke, it's a big problem. My tractor was broke during that time. I broke it. I broke the door. I needed parts. And I had to order parts for another door. I've broken a door twice. The first time I needed parts, they had it in stock, and I just went and grabbed it. The second time, he said, we probably have that in stock, but if we don't, it'll be about a week to get it. So, great. That's what you hope for. Probably in stock. If it's not in stock, it won't take that long. Or maybe you can go to another dealership if you're willing to drive because you're in a hurry. Thought that's a great answer. But I also had heard about the parts shortage, and it ended up taking almost a month to get those parts. It's out of the norm. It was bad timing. If you needed parts during that period of time, it sucked. That problem is not ongoing. It wasn't a problem before. It's not a problem after. While they were moving warehouses, it was a problem. So that, people heard that, and they didn't know it was temporary with a known cause and a known end date, and they took that as, oh my gosh, TYM can't get parts. It's just not the case. The second problem is an individual customer who had a warranty problem. His dealership completely failed him in covering his warranty and getting his tractor back to him. They failed him in communication. It was a disaster for my friend. He got ripped off by a poor acting dealership that didn't do what they needed to do. You know, bring your problem to the dealership's service department and give them an opportunity to fix it. If after a few weeks they haven't fixed it or they're not communicating with you, you go to the owner of that dealership. Then you give that person adequate time to resolve the problem. And then you take your problem to the corporate office and you say, here's the problem. It wasn't resolved in this period of time. And then follow up and do your diligence and make sure that you've given not only the dealership time to respond, but also the company. Do I know if that happened? No. Do you know? You don't know either. The other thing I will say is in my situation where I get constant communication from people who have tractors and want to tell me about their issues with their tractors is that the story that my friend who has the YouTube channel is telling about TYM not providing the service that they needed to, I've heard that story over and over and over again from owners of other brands of equipment, from John Deere to Kubota to LS, Mahindra, Coyote, every single brand. I've had someone email me or Facebook message me and tell me a story about how their tractor was broke for a long time. They couldn't get parts. The dealership went out of business. No one would help them. I've heard these stories, and it's a problem. There's also plenty of happy customers, and they make a lot less noise. Are you going to make more noise if you're happy with your tractor or if you're having a problem? So it doesn't make it okay that I've heard the same story from other brands. But it also, one instance or two instances of a story like this does not make me say I change my mind about the company, especially if it's a dealership problem. And maybe that problem should have been transferred to a more competent dealership. So I look for trends. Is TYM having more problems like this than other companies? The internet is changing everything because all the information's out there. If there's a major problem with a tractor brand, you're going to hear about it over and over again and not just once. So I'm not here to pass judgment on the situation, but I wanted to give my perspective because people keep asking me about it. So what's going on with TYM? What happened to them? Nothing. It's the same. Same as it was. If I was buying a tractor today, I probably wouldn't buy this one. I'd buy the 5520 Branson. Legacy Branson model that's now a TYM 5520. If I was buying a tractor today, I think that's what I'd buy. And you can make your own decision, but people have been wanting my opinion, and there's my opinion. So I appreciate you taking time to watch the video. I'll put links on the screen to a couple more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.